Lower the lights. Let the room grow quiet. Tonight, we drift into a different kind of city. Not the loud New York of bright billboards and traffic. Not the modern skyline glowing against the river. Instead, we travel back to a slower time, a heavier time, when control did not always announce itself, when power moved quietly. This is the story of how the Mafia really controlled New York, and we will tell it slowly. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, New York City was expanding at an astonishing pace. Ships arrived daily from Europe. Among those arriving were thousands of immigrants from southern Italy and Sicily. They stepped onto crowded docks carrying small suitcases, family names, and fragile hope. Life was not easy. Tenements were crowded. Jobs were scarce. English was unfamiliar. Neighborhoods formed around language and culture. Italian communities gathered in Lower Manhattan, Brooklyn, and parts of the Bronx. In these tight streets, trust mattered. Police often ignored immigrant neighborhoods. Politicians paid attention only during election season. So communities learned to protect themselves. Small street gangs already existed in New York. Irish gangs, Jewish gangs, local crews fighting for territory. But within the Italian neighborhoods, something more structured slowly began forming. Not chaos, not random violence. Structure, hierarchy, order. Men who understood organization saw opportunity. Over time, small groups evolved into larger families. Eventually, New York would recognize 5 major crime families: the Gambino crime family, the Genovese crime family, the Lucchese crime family, the Bonanno crime family, and the Colombo crime family. But in the beginning, there were no official titles. Just men gathering in social clubs, coffee brewing, conversations unfolding in quiet back rooms. They did not control the city overnight. Control, like stone buildings, was built slowly. In 1920, something remarkable happened. Alcohol became illegal in the United States. The law was called Prohibition. But desire did not disappear. New Yorkers still wanted wine with dinner, still wanted whiskey at night, still wanted celebration. This created an opportunity. Bootlegging began. Ships brought alcohol quietly along the coast. Trucks transported it through city streets at night. Warehouses stored it in hidden spaces. Speakeasies, secret bars, opened behind ordinary storefronts. The Mafia did not invent alcohol demand. They organized its supply. This was the key difference. They created systems, delivery routes, payment schedules, protection networks. Money flowed like the Hudson River. Steady, deep. Power grew. But even after Prohibition ended in 1933, the system did not collapse. Because by then, the families had learned something important. Control was not about one product. It was about influence. The Mafia operated like a corporation. There was a boss, an underboss, consiglieri, advisors, capos, captains, soldiers beneath them. Each layer understood its role. Orders traveled downward. Money traveled upward. But the true power was not violence. It was predictability. Businesses knew who to speak to. Disputes were settled internally. Territories were respected, mostly. If two crews disagreed, meetings were arranged. Not in public, but in restaurants after closing hours. In social clubs where curtains stayed drawn. The city continued functioning normally. Trains ran. Stores opened. Construction projects rose. Yet behind many of these everyday systems, quiet agreements existed. The word protection sounds gentle, and sometimes it was presented that way. A small shop owner might receive a visit, not aggressive, not loud, just a conversation. We can make sure nothing bad happens here. Payments were usually weekly, not enormous at first, consistent. In exchange, businesses received something unusual. Predictability. Windows were not broken. Supplies arrived smoothly. Competitors did not interfere. Over time, many shop owners came to see this as simply part of doing business, a cost, like rent. The power did not rely on constant force. It relied on reputation. Stories traveled quickly through neighborhoods. One example could influence dozens of decisions. Fear was rarely shouted. It was understood. Perhaps the most significant influence came through labor unions. New York was always building. Skyscrapers, bridges, roads. Construction required workers. Workers organized into unions. If the Mafia controlled union leadership, they controlled labor supply. If labor stopped, projects halted. This created leverage. Contract bids could be influenced, materials suppliers chosen carefully, waste hauling companies assigned. Garbage collection, surprisingly, became one of the most profitable industries under Mafia influence. Trash is constant. It must be removed. And if only certain companies are allowed to operate in specific neighborhoods, prices can quietly rise. No dramatic headlines, just slow, steady profit. Control of a city requires more than street presence. It requires cooperation, or silence, from officials. Not every politician was corrupt. Not every officer was compromised. But some relationships developed over time. Favors exchanged, campaign donations offered, warnings given before inspections. It was rarely loud corruption. More often, it was quiet understanding. Look the other way. This created space. Space for operations to continue. Space for influence to deepen. Imagine a morning in 1950. A Mafia boss wakes not in a hidden bunker, but in a modest home. Family breakfast at the table, children leaving for school. The day begins calmly. Mid-morning, he visits a social club. Men gather, coffee is poured, newspapers read, meetings happen casually. Issues are discussed in low voices. Construction contracts, union negotiations, debt collections. Money is counted carefully, books are kept, sometimes coded. By afternoon, errands are completed. By evening, dinner with family. Outwardly, life appears ordinary. This was part of the control. Normalcy, stability, no dramatic displays. Power that blends in. Control lasted decades, but systems evolve. In the 1960s and 70s, federal law enforcement began focusing more intensely on organized crime. Wiretaps improved, undercover operations expanded. Then came a powerful legal tool, the RICO Act. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act allowed prosecutors to target entire criminal enterprises, not just individuals for isolated crimes. This changed everything. Bosses could now be held responsible for actions ordered through layers of hierarchy. Trials became lengthy, evidence more detailed. The illusion of invincibility faded. Public perception shifted. Some bosses were convicted, others turned informant. Trust, the foundation of the system, weakened. When loyalty cracks, structure follows. New York did not collapse when Mafia influence declined. It adjusted. Construction continued. Garbage was still collected. Restaurants remained open. But the quiet dominance that once stretched across industries gradually receded. The five families did not disappear completely, but their reach changed. Power fragmented, influence narrowed. The city grew louder, brighter, more modern. Skylines changed, neighborhoods transformed. Yet if you walk certain streets late at night when the traffic fades and the lights dim slightly, you can almost imagine the earlier era. A social club door closed gently, a conversation finishing in low voices. Control that never needed to shout. And now, as we let this story settle, notice something peaceful beneath it all. Even systems built on influence eventually soften. Even power structures shift. Cities breathe. They change. They adapt. The New York skyline continues to rise and fall with time, but the human rhythm beneath it remains constant. Work, rest, ambition, sleep. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep yourself, the city grows quiet once more. No meetings, no contracts, no whispered agreements, just the slow, steady rhythm of breath. And the understanding that even the most powerful structures are temporary. Let the city fade. Let the streets empty. Let the night take over. Rest now.